neat thing about his system was that he used moose mane or different mallard feathers, and that one material makes the tail, the wing case, and the legs. And just by changing the colors, he was able to tie about 10, 11 different flies. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to put some lead on this thing, and this is a 12. I'm going to put about 8 wraps on it.
What size are you tying it in?
This is a 12, so you can see it. I've tied them everything from 18s to 12s. So Andy's thing was, when he did his lead, his theory was that he would cut the lead off halfway up to hook shank on the front and the back, and he said that gave him a little extra weight so it would keel. I never bought that, but that was his thing. If you look on the instructions, he kind of shows you how he did that. I could never see how that made much difference, but anyway, so I'm going to put the lead, and the proportions on this are 50% of it's the abdomen, 40% the thorax, and 10% the head. So you want to kind of get your lead up in there. You can see that? So I always put the lead on first, and then I put my thread on. And I get some wraps behind, then I cross over, build a little taper in the front, and then I'll go over the lead a few times.
Sit here.
Alright, geez.
You got great drivers on the frame. Yeah.
And whenever you're using lead on a nymph, you need to put some kind of head cement on it, because what happens after you use it once, it oxidizes and it'll come through the dubbing. So you always want to coat it with something. So with we're going to use moose. It's moose body hair. This is kind of the texture you want. And the amount of hair you use isn't determined by the tail or the legs. It's determined by how much you want for the wing case. So we're going to use that amount, and then I'm going to thin out everything else. So I want about, on a fly like this, I probably want maybe a dozen fibers probably. After you do a few, you kind of get a feel for how much you need.
George is using moose, whereas they're not hollow. Is that correct?
It's hollow in the butt. It's hollow in the butt, but not in the tips.
Oh, Gene lied to me.
Well, if you look at it, you see that? See how coarse it is there?
Yep.
That's hollow. But if you see the tips,
From there on, yeah.
yeah, it's not hollow there.
Okay.
Yeah, but part of it is. Not something you really want to try to spin, but
I hit him up on that today, so it's not hollow.
so you want to get all the underfur out of here. And I'm going to put it in my stacker. Let's see. Well, I usually square everything off. So, stack it again. So the tail wants to be about the gape of the hook. It'll be fairly short, so I'm going to lay everything on top. No, tie it down right behind my lead. 2 or 3 wraps, 4 wraps. Then I'm going to come in here with my scissors, and I'm going to take about half of this out. I get some wire for my rib. Now you can do this 2 ways. You can put the rib in now, which saves you wrapping the body back and forth with thread twice, or you can wind this all the way to the back and then come forward and put it in. But I always found, since I was tying a lot of these, I'd try to save some steps, so I'll just stick my wire in underneath, get about 2 wraps, lay it down, and then I'm going to hold all this moose up on top. I'm going to make tight wraps right about to the barb. Okay. Now what I'm using for dubbing, I think the original was black beaver. But what this is some black rabbit, and I've thrown in some rust-colored synthetic. You could use super fine if you wanted. I never use straight black beaver because there's hardly any insects that are just one color. Everything's got a multitude of colors. And this is a little coarser than what beaver would be. So I'm going to get enough for the thorax here. Pretty tight. Too much. Now I'm going to take the wire. It's on the far side, so I'm going to come underneath the tail. And I'm going to put about 4 or 5 wraps of wire. And I'm going counter to the way I've dubbed it. Tie the wire off in front. Make a ball of dubbing for the thorax. I want to make sure you cover all your lead up. At this point I'm just going to gather all these fibers, keep everything up on top, a couple tight wraps, come forward with it, and I'm going to come back right up to the front of the abdomen, and I'm going to take 3 fibers on either side, 3, 4, fish don't care. You want them alongside, and I'm going to take 2 wraps there, 3 more here, couple wraps there, and come in there and trim the rest of this out. And I'm going to put a little bit of dubbing on the head. That's it. Then you just take it out of the vise and you get all the legs together. I want to trim them right behind the thorax. And with the tail, I always like to, I'll take my thumb underneath there, push on that wire. It spreads the tails a little bit. Clean up some of these wild hairs. That's it.